listening to The Dealmaker's Edge with A.Y. Strauss, diving deep into stories behind commercial real estate leaders. Sean, thank you so much for joining our podcast today. We're excited to have you on. You're really one of the leaders in industrial real estate today, and we're excited to learn from you, hear your background, understand your challenges, some of your successes. Let's kick it off. Maybe you can give us some of your background. You obviously come from a family business.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Aaron. Our business, in the Dalfen name alone, I guess, started in 1935 by my grandfather, Joseph Dalfen, who came over from Eastern Europe to East Coast Canada, started selling clothes to farmers. And in the early 90s, my father, Murray, who was then president, made the decision to close the retail side of the business and focus exclusively on a new business, which was real estate in the U.S. And in the mid-2000s, I joined, and together we made the decision at that point that it made sense because of market conditions. We couldn't buy, so it made sense to sell. And we decided to sell the majority of his portfolio at the time. And it was asset agnostic. There were office buildings, retail, industrial. And after which I launched the fund side of the business and decided that we were going to be experts at one thing. And at the time, it was called infill industrial. And what that meant was industrial properties that are close to the population or within the population centers. And you fast forward to where we're at today, and we're one of the leaders in last mile industrial, as it's termed today. And that's all we do.
And I think it was pretty prescient when there was the bulk of the sale was sort of right before the precipice, right? It was 2007, if I recall correctly. So it was really...
Yes. Between 2006 and 2008. And, it was prescient. Some say it's good luck. We'll take both. The way we operate our business is by looking at what's happening on the ground and making decisions from that. And what we saw were tenants having trouble paying rent in certain markets, and the velocity of new lease deals had slowed down, and we couldn't buy any assets because the pricing was too high, so it just made sense to sell.
Of all the people I speak with in industrial, you really have some of the most amazing insights, which we want to try to pull out from you generally. Maybe we'll take another track here. I know you deploy in your day-to-day decision-making a lot of proprietary technology. Without giving anything away too proprietary, maybe you can just address sort of how you feel about technology in general, how you leverage it to understand the big picture, and how it informs your decision making.
Well, analytics go into our business really on a fundamental basis. I mean, what we utilize is what we call a top-down, bottom-up approach, meaning that we're using our own proprietary last-mile analysis to determine, one, what's an optimal last-mile location look like nationwide, and then in individual markets, what are the best last-mile locations within those markets? And then we use our bottom-up, which is our boots on the ground in those respective regions and markets, to find the assets that meet our property criteria. And so we use technology as a key component of our success in defining what is last mile and where we should be in the first place. Not to mention all the other technology we use, whether it's tracking our deals or the CRMs we use, or every aspect of our business has some kind of technology involved.
You also have a lot, some people when they invest in industrial, they are just obviously buying existing, but you're really heavily developing too, which I think obviously gives you another facet of the sector that a lot of people don't have. Tell me about how you guide that development team day to day, the infrastructure a little bit. It's a lot to undertake in real time.
We are doing a lot of development. So we also, I would say that we do more acquisitions than we do development. But development's a big component of our business, and how we operate in our development side is similar to our acquisition side, meaning each region that we have has its own specific deal team. And so that means using the development side, we have a development director who sources the developments themselves, who also is well-versed in building up projects, understanding local laws, the right contractors, etc. And then underneath them, they have a team of construction professionals. So, construction management team. And so you'll have a development manager and a project manager. And we also have due diligence professionals who help within the acquisition. And so each team focuses on a specific region and has to know that region intimately. And how we're able to stay on top of all these projects is we're incredibly organized, and we have a very talented group of people. And, we focus our resources where they need to be, and they're not spread out across the country. They focus exclusively on one area, and they know that area really well. And they're able to piggyback on, their experiences there in order to get things done. So certainly have a lot of people, but it's about the systems you have in place from an organizational standpoint, where each person owns their respective role and they understand their responsibility within that role and the timelines to get it done. And you have a leadership team in place that holds people accountable and ensures they get things done on time. And we do the same thing for acquisitions. And you have that same structure where you have, the acquisitions officer, and you also have asset managers and property managers and analysts and associates within each region. And they cover those regions, and it's a holistic approach. So the asset managers are very helpful in determining what we should charge in rents. Everybody has their role and knows what they have to do, and they have regular meetings on a daily basis. Once you have a well-oiled machine, there's always things that go wrong, but you're able to determine where the issue is a lot quicker.
It's a great description of infrastructure and very impressive. And I think a lot of people don't get that if you're going to buy and manage and oversee and develop tons of real estate, you also have to, manage that machine, which seems like you're really doing an amazing job at. One of the things we talked about on the development side, you're obviously doing industrial plays, last mile. It's sort of an interesting topic at today's times with a lot of the obsolescence of old-fashioned retail, some other centers which could sort of be repositioned. Have you explored sort of those like quasi-industrial plays out there, repurposing a shopping center to add on adjacent industrial, or an out parcel, making an industrial connection with retail? There's just so few industrial assets that are easy to buy today. So I know we've talked about sort of creatively getting to those spaces.
We have in lots of different ways. We have a platform that has focused on a component of it, rezoning certain properties. Typically standalone buildings that are ideally located. I mean, we're doing it. I got off a call a few minutes ago that was related to that. They're changing the zoning, scraping it, and then building an industrial facility on it. I can tell you that I am not personally a believer in the converting dead malls into industrial that everybody talks about. I think it's a pipe dream in most markets. Most cities don't want industrial. They just don't want it. They want retail. I mean, they want other things that may not be viable anymore. Every step of the way, they'll put roadblocks in your way. And, for good reason in lots of areas, they don't want industrial and they want something else there. Maybe they want a lifestyle center or more multifamily. The point being is that the effort associated with doing that, your level of success, the odds of you being successful, time value of money thing.
Yeah, the risk doesn't pencil out. And speaking of penciling out, maybe we'll talk about the fundamentals. I know obviously you're very bullish. I think, in the last half year, and I should probably overestimate because I know it keeps going up and up in real time, but it's been over $1.5 billion in deals in the last half year or more at this point, and you're acquiring heavily. But the last year, I mean, you've been on a tear, I think, even by your own standards. I mean, you're just growing and growing. There doesn't seem to be any signs of slowing down sort of in the last mile logistics space. But, when you see that deal, other than understanding the last mile component with your proprietary tech, what are the things you're thinking about in the first 5 minutes as you're underwriting a deal?
Well, first, I just want to address one point, and it's in relation to our growth. We have not grown exponentially. We're acquiring slightly more this year than we did last year, but we have been incrementally growing over the years. It's just more public and noticeable today because people are really into industrial. So before we would have been ignored because we were just industrial guys. Today it's like, wow, you're doing all these deals. Well, we were doing these deals last year. No one paid attention. And the year before too. But
well taken, Sean. Well taken. Absolutely.
what do I personally look at? Well, I'm a deal guy. And so the first things I look at are the construction of the buildings. Are they good buildings, and do they have the ability to be released easily? What are the locations of the buildings? Is it in a good location? Is your access good? Is your ability to access the population surrounding? What is the use of this facility? Is it a fulfillment center or a larger distribution / fulfillment center where you may have to rely on a heavy employee base? And if so, where are your employees going to come from the warehouse end? There are all kinds of different factors, but in the first 10 minutes, we can usually determine if it's a deal that we're going to continue to look at. We don't get too creative in what we buy from the standpoint of we want to buy class A and B plus to occasionally, if it's infill, B properties. We want modern, high quality industrial buildings that don't have too many warts on them, that can be leased to a myriad of different tenants if they're not already leased, and that they have long-standing value from a location standpoint. And so if it doesn't meet those criteria, we're likely not going to buy it. And
Sure.
so even if something yields a lot, we could go after flex buildings and get really good yields far higher than the type of product that we buy today. But we're not believers in that space. We stick to our niche and our knitting, and we just improve on that.
Well said. Well, somebody out of school comes and sits you down and manages to coerce you to get a cup of coffee with them and wants advice into breaking into industrial real estate today. What are you telling them in this really hot time, really hot market? How are they getting into the space, or just generally commercial real estate investing generally?
Well, my career advice is whatever you do it well. Try things out and see if you like them. I don't think that any of us who have experience in a space continue to do it and like what we're doing because we don't like the problems that we're dealing with. Whatever you do, you're going to encounter problems. That's all I deal with every day, is just dealing with problems. Find something where you like the problems. And hard work. I mean, that can't be underscored. I know we're in a generation of, call it instant gratification, but maybe I'm old school, but I'm of the school where you put in your time, you work those long hours, and you're going to gain a lot from it. I would tell a young person today that the real estate world today is not like the tech world, in that you can jump jobs every 6 months, a year, 2 years, and you're really going to grow your knowledge base and your ability to excel in companies. You have to stick around for a long time. And by you sticking around and putting in your time and working hard, you're going to give yourself the best opportunity to grow and be successful in the space. I think real estate is real estate. I mean, whether it's industrial real estate or whether it's residential or retail, understand that space and find something within that space that makes you unique. And that's how you can have a successful firm.
I mean, you said real estate has problems, and day-to-day successful businesses have a lot of problems. It always looks really exciting on the outside, but day-to-day there's a ton to manage.
Life is problems there.
Life is problems. Well said.
I'll just leave you with this it's something I read, and I didn't invent, but I read it in a book. It said, you don't have a car, you have problems of how you get to work every day. You have to take the bus, wait for it, and you're cold and it sucks because you're waiting outside. And then you get your car, and then you have to pay for the gas, the maintenance on the car, the cost of the car, and then you get a nicer car, and so on and so forth. You just increase the level of problems. They just become different. Everything that you have to do in life is problems. So just make sure that you be grateful for the problems that you have.
Really, really well said. I think that's a terrific lesson. And I think that's, your edge. How did you, get through all those problems? It really seems like the mentality is there. The mentality, the mindset, the open-mindedness that every problem is just an opportunity to refocus and reestablish yourself. But any advice, and this is the last question, I know you've got a ton going on, but any advice as to how to manage the mental side of the game that people don't see day to day?
My wife asked me that a little while ago, and she's much smarter than me. And she said, I was home for whatever reason, and I worked out of my house for the day, and she just happened to be around me more than she otherwise would have been at home. And she said, how do you deal with all these problems? You're on the phone all the time dealing with one stress after another. And I said to her that the benefit of having so many different stressors is it's very difficult to focus on any given one.
Oh, that's good. That's deep, Sean. I love that. I'm going to use that.
The way my head works,
Yeah, yeah. It's just
I
too
have to
much.
choose what I'm going to get stressed about. And if
Love
there's
it.
so many, I mean, like I'm,
Yeah.
you
They
know,
get diluted. They get diluted as
it's
a
too many.
result.
It's too many options. So I
Good.
think again, it comes down to liking what you do and recognizing that we all need time off too. And I can say for me, time spent with my family
Sure.
is more important than any time that I spend at work. Although I have a tendency to want to work more than I probably should. You can't get back time with your family, and you need to de-stress in certain ways. So I don't know. Everybody deals with stress differently. You can choose meditation, you can choose sports, or you can do all of the above. But I think it really comes down to liking what you do. And if you like the problems you have, then you'll tend to be able to deal with them.
Sean, I could not have said it better myself. And really, what a tremendous amount of advice given and thoughtfulness. And
Thank you for having me.
terrific podcast. And I really, really appreciate you joining. Thank you for joining the Dealmaker's Edge. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Give us a 5-star rating so more people can follow the conversation.